I'm Sally Sfeir-Tait. I'm the CEO of RegulAItion, which is a reg tech and data tech company. It all started with a call from one of the biggest payment companies. I researched them, and they were talking about themselves as being a technology company, not as being a payments company. And I started to really realize in depth that technology was in everything. Technology was impacting how we live, regulation, and then regulation in turn really impacts every human being. And that really is what started the journey. That journey through discovering technology couldn't be done through the platform of one company. I had to do it through different perspectives. I did it from within a large bank. I did it by being general counsel, by being head of compliance. I did it by drafting legislation, by being a regulator, by being a company advisor, and then eventually by being a partner at a global British law firm, which advised governments and small companies and fintech startups. And that showed me technology from very different angles, and then the impact of regulation on that technology, and vice versa, the impact of technology on regulation. I became a regulator after the financial crisis. The financial crisis brought a world of pain for everybody. We felt it in our economy, but actually the whole system's structure had to be rethought. And what that created is novels of new regulation with novels of data that had to be gathered and then that had to be analyzed by both the firms and the regulators. There was lots of friction. You had different regulators interpreting things differently in different countries, but then everything had to then be brought together so that the world would make sense to both the regulator and the regulated. And actually all that did was bring those two worlds completely apart. And then everybody started to look inwards, and then they couldn't see each other's problems, or they tried to, but that just even compounded the problem because that then required more data. And that means that everybody is focusing on complying and not focusing on the purposes of regulation, which is protecting the consumer. With all of that complexity and that exponential growth, we just need better tools. And that's everybody who's interacting with regulation, be it the regulator or the regulated. And the trouble is that in that space, it's not just about deploying those new tools. You have to be mindful about people's sensitive data. And therefore, you've got this constant balance that has to be struck between privacy and compliance, the interest of the many versus the interest of the few. We often talk about data. On the news, we're always talking about data. But what we don't hear is the nuance between the different types of data. There's data on this hand, which is completely open. There's data on that hand, which is completely closed. And there's everything in between. And how you deal with that data and that data is very different. This is your child's medical history. This is what you freely post on Twitter or Facebook. And everything in between. Companies also deal with data. Like people, companies have data. The data that they hold is their data and their customers' data. They don't want to share what is commercially sensitive because they want to keep their advantage. But equally often, and they cannot share that data, they cannot disclose that data, because that would be in breach of privacy legislation. Now imagine what would happen if there was a way for the value to come out of that data without actually breaching privacy laws, confidentiality requirements, or commercial imperative. We don't have to compromise. We can still extract intelligence out of data without putting the individual's privacy at jeopardy, without putting the individual corporation at jeopardy. It is actually possible to achieve both, and that is what drives us. We live in an interconnected world. Climate connects us all, and climate is changing. What is the impact of this? How does an insurance company calculate premiums that we as individuals pay when it doesn't know what the climate is going to do? And every insurance company cannot do it on its own, because they only have access to that little sliver of information. So imagine if you had insurance company A, insurance company B, and keep on adding one here and one there. And then imagine if you had an algorithm that they're all connected on the AIR platform, and the algorithm would start from one data set to another data set, to another one, and to another one. And then, not just would it access the data and derive the intelligence, it would then give it back to all of the people who are connected in exactly the same channel, in the same circle of trust. Then, add some public data, add some climate data, and then run it again. And imagine the intelligence that you get there. And then add some academic data and have academic models and run the algorithms again and see what happens. That's really the value that we see out of connecting those that are not otherwise connected. By joining an ecosystem, they're combining forces for a joint algorithmic purpose. They're still not saying, oh, we're going to give you all of our data, because that's never going to happen. They're trusting that the platform will deliver a mechanism to prevent data leakage, to keep data private. This ecosystem is the AIR platform.